All right, this is Chris with Lone Star Grillz, and we're back again. Tonight we're prepping for a cook we're going to do tomorrow. We're making hanger steak tacos. Now, hanger steak is also called the butcher's cut. It's really hard to find, hence the name butcher's cut, because the butcher would keep that for himself. It's an extremely tender cut of beef. It's a lot like flank steak or skirt steak. You can also find it a lot of times in a Mexican meat market called fajita norteña. They slice it actually in half from what we've got here, half or thirds, marinate it, and you make fajitas out of it. You can see here, pretty nice cut of beef. Grains running this way, and we have a piece of connective tissue in the middle. This is a whole lot, well, I'll compare it to like a filet. It's extremely tender. The only difference is the piece of connective tissue running down the center. Now, I could cut that out right now, and it's not that it's not edible. It's just like a piece of gristle that runs completely down the middle, but this is it may even be more tender than actually filet. It's at least equally tender. So what we're going to do with the hanger steak is we're going to season that up. We're going to season this up tonight. What I'm using here is a chupacabra steak seasoning. We're just going to lightly coat that with a little bit of this on both sides. And again, you can see that connective tissue runs right down the center. We're going to cut this up tomorrow. After we grill it, we're going to cut it up into steaks, and then we'll just separate that out when we're done. I'd rather do it later, after it's cooked. That way we can cook this whole. I think it'll cook up nicer as a whole piece of meat than it will if we separate it right now. And then the other thing we need to do tonight is we're going to make a chimichurri sauce. So what this is basically like a pesto. This is like a South American version of pesto. So what I've got here is I've got one bunch of flat leaf parsley and one bunch of cilantro. I've pulled out most of the stems, at least the big pieces that I can get. There's no need to fuss about it a whole lot. I've made this several ways. I've made it with all parsley. I've made it with all cilantro. I just like the combination of the two. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our food processor, or our Ninja Chop. We're going to start out, I've got 4 large cloves of garlic. Like one of those is extremely large. So we're going to start out with some garlic. Just a little bit of olive oil to start with. We're going to get that chopped up real quick. So we want to do that first, just to kind of get those garlic cloves chopped up. We'll add all of this. And then we've got 5 other ingredients. So we've got a little bit of black pepper, coarse ground, a little bit of kosher salt, red pepper flakes, and red wine vinegar. Now, also, just a little bit. What that's going to do, that acid is going to break those down. All the ingredients is going to kind of break it down and help marinate all those flavors. Also, a lot of times I'll use lemons. However, COVID-19 couldn't get lemons today. So we're just going to skip that. So we're going to start out with a little more olive oil. We'll see how that goes. We're going to have to add some more here. Now you can also chop this up. I prefer the food processor or the Ninja Chop. Makes it a little bit easier. So we got a rough chop here. We're going to add some more oil. Takes a couple of times to do this. And get it to the right consistency. You can already smell that. It's amazing. This works well on any of the flat steaks. Flank steak, skirt steak. This is amazing on a tri-tip. You want to do it in doses. Obviously, you don't want to overdo it, because if you overdo the oil, then the only way to come back from that is to add more parsley and more cilantro. And since we only got one bunch, then we just want to kind of take our time. So that looks almost perfect right there. So you can see what we got here. Rough chop, you can see the garlic, you can see the red pepper flakes, cilantro, parsley. So we're going to let this sit all night. This is going to be a dry brine. That's going to pull that salt, and some of those spices are going to get pulled all the way into that meat so that we're seasoned all the way through. So this is going to be probably a 12-hour dry brine. We're going to set this up in the refrigerator. Now, you don't have to set it up that long in the fridge, but the important thing is this has to set up for a while, 4 to 6 hours. That way those flavors marry. If you tasted it right now, it might be just, I don't want to say bitter, but it'd be just a little bit stout. So that has to kind of marry for a little bit and mellow out. So we're going to let this sit in the fridge for a little bit, and then tomorrow before we make our tacos, we're going to let this sit out and warm up to room temperature. So we'll be back in the morning. We're going to get that fire going and get that hanger steak going. All right, so here we are the next day, getting ready to put our hanger steak on. That has set up in the fridge all night, dry brining with that chupacabra steak seasoning. We got our grill set up here for indirect cooking. I've already got the fire started. I'm not going to show you all that again. We've done that in a couple other videos just previously. I have got it dialed down so that my bottom grade on this side's 225 to 250. Right about 250 is where we're at now. That's kind of what I'm shooting for. I have a meat probe in here with steak or a roast or anything like that to get that perfect medium rare. That is absolutely essential. So we got our meat probe in there, and we're shooting for about 125, and then that's when we're going to stop cooking it indirect. We'll take it off the heat, and then we're going to reverse sear it at the end. I'll show you what we got here. We got about the equivalent of 2 chimneys worth of charcoal. I got 1 small chunk of post oak just to give it a little bit of smoke flavor. So we'll take a look at that. Show you how we got that set up there. Roughly 2 chimneys worth of lump charcoal there. Got our basket lowered all the way down, all the way away from the grate, and then we're going to cook over here on this side. So we'll go ahead, we're going to get this on the grill. This is going to take about, at that temperature, it's going to take about an hour and a half or so to come up to that 125 internal temp. So we're going to set that off of the fire, indirect. We're going to cook it to 125 internal temp. Then we'll come back when we're ready to do that. We'll add some more charcoal, bring our grate up so we can do that reverse sear. So we'll be back in just a minute. And also, we went ahead and at this time, we took that chimichurri that we made last night. We're going to set this out so that we can let that come up to room temperature. We don't want to serve it on our tacos cold. So we're going to go ahead and get this shut up, and we'll be back in just a little bit. We've been cooking this for about an hour and 15, hour and 25 minutes. We're right at 125 degrees internal temp. So I'm not going to take that anywhere. I'm leaving the lid up. That way, I'm also going to open that up to bring some cooler air in there. I don't want to let that continue cooking, but I don't need to pull it off the grill. Once I open the lid, let a little fresh air in here, it'll literally just hold right there at that temperature just from the radiant heat in the steel. Now we got our fire over here. I've opened, going to open my damper all the way. We're going to add just a little more lump on top of what we already got. We'll throw another chunk of wood in there, 1 or 2. We're going to let this go for probably about 15, 20 minutes. I got some other prep work to do over here. I got some onions we're going to saute in just a second, some avocados we're going to get ready. So I'm going to let that catch all the way on, let it a good hot, really hot fire get going there. That's going to stop cooking. Just hold warm where it is, and we'll be back in a minute and get this thing reverse seared and get some onions cooking. So I got the first bit of prep work done that we needed to get done before we go and reverse sear our steak. I've got some onions here that I have sliced up and drizzled with some olive oil, a little salt and pepper. So we're going to set that up in the cast iron skillet. It's going to set on top. We're going to saute those. I'm going to probably add a little bit of water to it in just a second when I start getting it just to hit it and soften them up at the very end. So we're going to let that keep going. You can see our fire here is really going. Got a real nice fire. That'll be ready in about another 10-15 minutes. I want to let that to where it's not so much flame, but a whole lot of heat. So a couple more minutes on that. This guy here is still just sitting right at 127. So, you know, you expect it to cook just a little bit more, but that'll literally just sit there and hold. I've actually held things like this, whole tenderloins. I've held whole rib roast for up to an hour, hour and a half even, and it just will literally stay right there at that temperature. So we're going to let that stay, get this going, and we'll be back in just a minute. So we still got our onions sauteing. Next step is I got some fresh corn tortillas we picked up from a local taqueria. I'm just heating those up on the top rack. We're going to heat those up, save those for later, wrap them in foil. That way we can assemble all this at the end. Onions are sauteed. I'm going to let them stay up there and keep warm. Got all our tortillas, same thing, keep warm. I'm leaving the top off. I don't want to trap moisture in there, but I still want to keep them. I'm leaving the top kind of open, vented. I don't want to trap moisture in there and get them soggy. Got our fire died down just a little bit. I've got my grate raised all the way up. So we're going to go ahead, reverse sear this. It's only going to take a couple minutes, not even a couple minutes on each side, literally just 30, 45 seconds on each side, and then we'll take it off, let it rest a little bit. Best thing about this, we're able to do the whole meal on the grill here, utilizing all the different parts all at the same time. It is a big grill. I get that a lot. A lot of people ask, can we make a smaller one? But having that extra large grill with all these different areas that we can utilize all at once really makes this a very versatile piece of cooking equipment. From smoking, grilling, searing, sauteing, baking. Really just a lot of ways we can use that. Remember now, we've already cooked this to the perfect temperature. All we want to do is get a crust on the outside, so we don't want to overcook it. We're going to flip this one or two more times, get a nice crust on the outside. All right, that looks good. All right, we're going to let this rest. Probably 10-15 minutes, just like any other steak. Let it rest. I'm going to go ahead and cut this up. I'm not going to bore you with that. I got some avocados I'm going to slice and get ready. We're going to come back and build some hanger steak tacos. We let the steak rest for 10-15 minutes. I've got it all sliced up. I sliced it all across the grain. If you remember last night, I showed you that vein that ran through the middle, that cartilage. I tried my best to cut it out. I did miss a little bit here, but I got 90% of it. You can see perfectly cooked medium rare. Absolutely, positively some of the most tender meat you'll ever have. So without further ado, let's make one of these tacos. So I'm going to grab one of my tortillas, grab a little bit of meat here. A little bit of those sauteed onions that we did. A couple avocados. We'll do a drizzle of that chimichurri that's been setting up all night long. Hit it with a little bit of lime juice. We're going to give this bad boy a try. Unbelievable combination of flavors. We got our chimichurri that really jumps out at you. Those herbs, the cilantro, the parsley, a little bit of heat from the red pepper flakes, that creamy avocado, that brightness from that fresh lime we did, and that is the most tender meat. You get a hold of this, and it's not expensive. You got to go to your butcher and ask for it, though. This cost $3.80 a pound, and I bought a whole case.
So for 175 bucks, and this is as tender as any filet. So give this a try. Check out our YouTube channel and our website for more recipes. And also check it out for all the products that we feature. LoneStarGrills.com. Got all of our smokers on there, several videos and links. Thanks for checking out, and subscribe to the channel.